Andy, when you were doing Leafs Lunch, I'm sure you talked about John all the time. I would say he kind of he's blended into the team. Like the further you get away from the signing, remember how exciting that was when he signed? We just went through it with Ohtani, with Kawhi. But the flip side of it was John Tavares, where it was not a sure thing that he was going to sign. In fact, it was really kept pretty close to the vest. Like up until July 1st, it was literally made for TV. It was a great TV production. July 1, I remember I was up north. I think it was on a Saturday or a Sunday. And the news broke. It was like 1 o'clock, 1:30, an hour and a half into free agency. And all of a sudden, we're like, boom, John Tavares is a Maple Leaf. Like we were building towards it, and it felt like it was certainly a possibility. But there had been reports out that the Islanders had offered him the 10th year or the 8th year. They were willing to give him 11 and a half. San Jose was in on it, maybe Dallas. He had done all these different meetings. And when he signed, it was bedlam. And then he had a great first year. Gets the captaincy going into his second year, I believe it was. And now here we are into his 6th year, and it's, Matthews and Marner and the playoffs and Dubas coming and go. There's been all these different storylines, but you look at John, he's just like the picture of consistency. Like he defines just consistent. Every night it's basically the same thing. He operates the same way. And you got to give him credit because it's the eye of the storm up here in Toronto. You're the captain of the Maple Leafs, and it's never affected him whatsoever.
He has the best personality for it too, I think, as well. We know he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. I remember that time, but I also think a lot of us were burned from the whole Steven Stamkos hoopla. Because there was also a real belief that Steven Stamkos was going to come to Toronto, or at least that he was going to leave Tampa. Obviously, ends up staying with Tampa. And I think with Tavares, there was like this cautious optimism. But to be honest with you, I didn't think he'd actually be as good as he is. I'll be completely honest because some of the scouting report coming on in was that he was getting older. A lot of people, a lot of pundits who know way more than I, did and do. We're saying, the Leafs, that contract's not going to look good in a few years. If there's one knock that he has against them is he doesn't have the foot speed, never really had it, but it's already declining. And I just thought, great. Here we are all excited that a free agent finally chooses Toronto. It's a big free agent, too. It's a kid coming back home, and everything was great. And people are like, his foot speed's going to be done in about 3 years. So it's nice to see what he's doing.
Yeah, he's into his 6th year, and it just has been consistent. Like I saw Big Head Hockey tweeted this out last night, and they are reputable.
Okay, Big Head Hockey?
Big Head Hockey. It's a real site.
Reputable.
They do very good work. They posted this. I should have sent it to the TV guys. This is my bad. But we can post it later. I'll reference it now. But John Tavares, in his last 5 seasons as an Islander, he averaged .98 points per game, .42 goals per game, .56 assists per game, 3.26 shots per game. With the Leafs, .98 points per game into his 6th season now, the exact same percentage. .42 goals per game, the exact same percentage. .56 assists per game, the exact same percentage. 3.24 shots per game, 0.2 less than his 5 years that concluded his time in Long Island. So in other words, what he was leading up to the contract, getting the contract, statistically, it's been the exact same. Yeah. Now, the cap not going up because of COVID obviously affected the numbers. He is not an $11 million player anymore based on like pure production and everything he brings to the table. But he's not a $3 million guy.
No.
And that's, I think, the best compliment you can give a guy who signs in his late 20s a big contract. Just went through it with Shohei Ohtani. If Shohei's hitting 45 bombs in 6 years, that means he was probably worth every penny in it.
Yes.
And that's what Tavares has managed to do.
But just like Shohei, with the $700 million over 10 years, it's just hard to live up to contracts like this, right?
When you never really do you?
Yeah. And the problem for Tavares, I think, is, look, he's been a consummate pro. You're right. He's got a great, never too high, never too low personality, never fazed by anything. But the problem is the team hasn't given the fans what the fans want, right? And just like the team didn't give the fans what the fans wanted in Long Island when he won one playoff series in those, 9 years?
Yeah, he was there for 9 years.
9 years in Long Island. And they won one playoff series here. And it's not a fault of John Tavares. It's a fault of roster construction, you can make the case, right? Because getting Tavares was getting a guy you didn't need. They didn't need another forward. They didn't need another $11 million forward. They needed guess what? The thing we talk about every day on this station. More D, maybe a little more eye
Depth and
toward the goal.
defense and
Yeah. And I mean, so that'll be the interesting thing here. Like, they've still got time to rewrite the narrative of this era of Leafs hockey, right? They've still got time. Got another playoff run coming, you would think, unless something really bad happens between now and April. But I think the ultimate story of John Tavares' tenure here, unless something does change in the playoffs, is great addition, wonderful guy, excellent captain, terrible results in the playoffs.
Yeah, that said, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about how we focused on this team and their lack of playoff success for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years, which is wild. They finally win a playoff round, and it's on his stick.
Yeah.
And I don't think that gets enough attention.
That's valid.
And I can look myself in the mirror on that. I got a microphone. I talk as much as anybody in this city in terms of this team and, driving narratives and conversations and all that. And I think a part of it was the confusion because the play, it was like everyone thought Morgan Riley scored it,
Right.
which was kind of bedlam, and the way it went in and the way it was called and the way, the aftermath of it. And then they fall flat against Florida the next round, which definitely takes something away from it.
And by the way, he didn't score a goal against Florida.
Right.
At 1 point against Florida.
I understand that. But in terms of
that's what we're talking about.
that is the
That's what we're
aftermath
talking
of it.
That's why we can't celebrate the great moment, because immediately after the great moment,
So there can't be any great moments unless it's the ride is complete.
Okay, well, you can celebrate it. I don't hear you celebrating it.
I'm asking
You're
you.
Mr. Leaf fan.
I'm asking you.
No.
I feel like it's the taste that's
So
left
it's not
in your mouth.
worthy of being mentioned that John Tavares scored the goal that punched a ticket that no other team had done and no other player on this team had done in like 18 years.
No,
We did
I
mention-
agree.
That seems probably worthy of.
I think it's worthy, but I also agree with Fez. It's like the way they went down in the second round too.
Was terrible.
It wasn't a good fight.
No.
Because then at least you could be like, oh, not only did they finally get over the hump of getting past that first round, man, was it a doozy of a second round? But
Right.
we can't say that. It just felt like it was wah, wah. And honestly, I'm getting PTSD right now of all the years that we are literally speaking about the exact same thing that we talked about every single
that's the
day
problem. That's the problem.
on
Andi.
Leafs Lunch.
Yeah. No,
Why have things not changed with this team?